아메리칸 드림이라는 제목으로 강의를 해주시겠습니다. 큰 박수로 부탁드립니다.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to recognize Council General of Korea, Mr. Sung-Jin Kim, the President of Greater Atlanta Korean Association, Mr. Ki Sung-bae, the President of the Southeastern Korean School Association, Mr. Alex Sonu, and Ms. Soo-yoon, who I have the pleasure of being her daughter's assistant principal at Peachtree Ridge High School. I'm so honored to be here today and be invited to speak to you. I think that after you hear my story today, you'll wonder, just like me, why I was asked to present to you. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, in November of 1974. I was found on the steps of the Taejoon police station when I was 2 days old. I spent a short time in the orphanage before I was relocated to a foster home. It was in Seoul, and I waited there in my foster home until I was 4.5 months old. My parents, Paul and Judy Farrow of Portland, Oregon, had a son, but were having difficulty getting pregnant again. They wanted a second child, and they very much wanted a girl. My father had heard on the radio that there were children in Korea who were being abandoned by their biological parents. This touched his heart, and he went home and he asked my mother if she would like to adopt a baby girl from Korea. My mother was always meant to be a mother. She loved children, and she did not care if her daughter was born from her or not. It was this decision in 1973 that brought me to the United States in April of 1975. I was 4.5 months old. Upon adoption, my parents naturalized me as a citizen of the United States at the age of 3. It's a good thing, because I didn't have to take the citizenship test. My older brother, Eric, was their birth child, and he was 3.5 years older than me. I'm much cuter. When people around the world think about America, it's not the land, the broad mountains and rivers and streams, or the tall buildings, the massive interstate highways, or the high standard of living that entices them. It's the American dream. It's the concept that an individual can create anything in this country. Someone can become anything and anyone, rise to any position, build an empire, or, as for the people in this room, build a child's character. However, the American dream is flawed. As Koreans, we know that no one can do anything alone and without the sacrifices of others. Americans, as Korean Americans, we have the ultimate advantage because we have the dream that this country was built on and the wisdom and understanding that others who have come before us have sacrificed so that we can be here today in this room learning how to be better teachers. It is an honor and privilege for me to do my life's work of helping others find their destiny, and that's what a teacher does. My father worked. We owned our home. It had a big yard with chickens, a dog, a cat, and many other pets, including a lot of birds for some reason. My mother was a homemaker And my brother and I played long hours in the summer, hide and go seek in the neighborhood. We would play in all the neighbors' yards and run around in and out of their yards as if it was one big playground. It was a great place to grow up. I was very safe, and my father built me a bike from various parts. He was kind of a collector. And the bike, because it was from many different bike parts, he had to repaint. He painted the body of the bike black, the handlebars blue, and it had a bright yellow sparkly banana seat. It was the 70s. He said, "Jenny, this bike, I built it for you. Look, it's black like the sky, blue, black like the night, blue like the sky, and the seat is like the sun." While I had the American dream childhood and American citizenship secured, I was the only non-white person in my neighborhood. One of 3 in my school, and one of 2 in my extended family. My favorite aunt by marriage was Japanese, and she spoiled me. And although there was one other Korean adoptee in my high school, I did not meet a culturally Korean person until I was 22 years old. At that point, I had graduated with my bachelor's degree in secondary education, and I went to Korea to teach English. I never met another Korean, and I had only tasted kimchi once. In the 3rd grade, because it was International Day, and my teacher liked me and knew I was from Korea, so brought in kimchi. When I arrived to Andong, Korea in November of 1997, I was an English teacher in a hagwon. My roommate was a white woman from Montana that had not arrived yet. An associate of the Wangjannim picked me up at the airport and took me to my new apartment. Everything was foreign to me. I was not used to walking up 12 flights of stairs to an apartment without an oven. I was unfamiliar with sleeping on the floor, and at first I was confused by the yo. I thought it was a comforter and I slept underneath it. Someone told me, because I did think it was kind of heavy. That first night I walked to the corner store and I needed soap to clean the apartment. I'm sure I looked really weird because I was walking around the store and I couldn't read anything. I couldn't say anything in Korean. And I started picking things up and sniffing them, trying to determine if it was food or soap. Finally, I found something that resembled soap, and I walked up my 12 flights of stairs to clean my new apartment. When people travel to other countries, they often experience culture shock. I describe my experience in Korea as double culture shock. I had culture shock as an American, but it was compounded because everyone expected me to be Korean, and I didn't know how to be Korean, primarily because I did not speak the language. So I did look Korean until I opened my mouth. My students and Korean friends would always comment, "Your English is impeccable. You speak great English. Your pronunciation is so good." I'd reply, "It had better. It's the only language I speak." Being in Korea was actually very stressful for me. It was not what I had imagined. I was young and naive, and I thought that I would return to my homeland, connect with my heritage, and come back a stronger individual with a sense of identity and sense of self. There were so many cultural misunderstandings beyond the language that would occur daily. But the language is the core of a culture, and I did not have it. I did not like that older people would cut me off in line in Korea. Happens in Ashi Market also. My Korean friends thought I was funny that I would wander around by myself and that I did not need to be in a large group. I suppose it was my American individualism standing out. I always felt that I needed to explain to people why I didn't speak Korean. I'd be explaining to taxi drivers, 미국 사람. Very awkward occasions would happen. There was one occasion I was in Seoul trying to explain to the taxi driver why I didn't speak Korean. I kept saying I'm an American. It resulted in him taking me to the American Army base. What was the most awkward about explaining why I did not speak Korean is that I would explain my last name is Pharaoh, I'm adopted, which would lead to, yes, I was abandoned, and it would result in looks of sorrow or pity from the recipient. It was very awkward, and I felt incompetent at being Korean. I was very frustrated that others could speak Korean and I could not. I didn't feel it was my fault, however, and since I hadn't met another Korean until I was 22 years old. It was probably that 22-year-old stubbornness that decided I would not learn Korea while I was I decided I would not learn Korean while I was in Korea. My white American colleagues who taught at the Hagwon with me studied Korean daily. They would speak Korean when we were out. They would call taxis and tell them where we needed to go. They would order in restaurants in Korean. They embraced the culture, and I rejected it in the way that I thought it had rejected me. As you recall, the end of 1997 was a very difficult time in Korea. The economy was crashing. The won went from 800 won to the dollar to 1,800 won to the dollar while I was there in just 4 months. I was paid in won and could not afford to stay, or thought I couldn't afford to stay, and I returned home to teach social studies in a public high school in Oregon. I'll always remember how people reacted to the economy. My weekly checks from the Hagwon would be late. Every week they'd be later and later. Various businesses would allow me to buy things on credit. Not credit cards, but no, it's okay. If you don't have the money, you can pay later. At my gym, I didn't have money to pay that month. They said, it's okay, pay when you can. This would have never happened in America. I saw so many people helping others, paying for them, giving small loans. There was a sense of unity that I had not experienced in American culture. When I told my Korean friend, Soo Young, that I would be quitting the Hagwon and returning to America because my paycheck was too late and I was not making enough money, I recall the look on her face and how quiet she got. We spoke again on the phone that night, the night before I left, and she tried to convince me again to stay in Korea. She said things would get better if everyone stayed. My bullheaded American independence could not see it any other way. At the end of the day, it was not my friends, my hagwon, or my roommate. It was about me paying off my college loans, and it was not going to happen in Korea as I had hoped. I left, but have spent the last 19 years wondering what would have happened if I had stayed the 2 years in Korea that I had planned. Would I have learned to work through the culture shock? Would I have accepted who I was? Would I have learned how to blend the positive aspects of Korean and American culture? Would I have learned how to read, write, and speak Korean, helping me to identify as a Korean American? 2 years after I returned to the United States, I visited my friend in Texas. He and I had taught at the same hagwon. He had stayed in Korea and was fluent in Korean. It was then that I learned that the Korean teachers were paid later than the American teachers in the hagwon. While my paycheck was 2 weeks late, their paycheck had been a month late. I missed so much by not speaking Korean. Russell, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed friend, was more Korean than me, or at least that is what I thought at the time. It was happenstance that I moved from Portland, Oregon to Atlanta, Georgia. I was a principal of a small Portland and I was 32 years old. My mother and father had both died from cancer within 3 weeks of each other. I was devastated and I needed a change. I had attended the Harvard Principal Center and had met a friend who lived in Atlanta, so I had already visited and really liked it here. I knew it was sunny most of the time. But I didn't know that there were 100,000 Koreans living in Atlanta. And I did not know that Gwinnett County Public Schools, where I am employed, automatically translates all important material to Korean because there are so many families in Gwinnett. In 2010, I was asked to be the program coordinator for the Korean American Adoptee Adoptive Network's annual conference, and it was supposed to be in Atlanta that year. The only reason I agreed was because it appeared they didn't have anyone else. I was planning this conference and introduced to the Korean community in Atlanta for the first time. I reached out to the largest Korean church in the Southeast. I heard they had vans. We needed their vans to transport the children for our conference. So I was introduced to their English ministry pastor. And before I knew it, I was in his dining room having dinner, and he was introducing me to other Korean women my age. One of them asked me to join her small group. She said her small group was meeting that night. So after dinner, I followed her to her small group meeting, and it was from there that I joined KCPC, Karis of KCPC, and started attending as a member. And it was then that I first joined the Korean community. I should have told you that in the beginning. I'm a real late bloomer. I cannot tell you what it's felt like for me to be and feel part of the Korean community. I became involved and was a small group leader for a couple of years and even served on the church board for a year. I understand Korean culture a lot more now. Still don't speak Korean, but I hear there's some people that can help me out with that. I have a lot of Korean friends. I say as many Korean friends now as non-Korean friends. I'm comfortable in Korean settings and have adopted family here in Gwinnett who are Korean. Everyone laughs that my real family is white and my adopted family is Korean, but I've never been normal. What has surprised me the most among my 2.0 friends is how few of them speak or feel comfortable speaking Korean. I don't know why they grew up in Korean families with parents that spoke Korean. However, in their workplaces, they don't feel comfortable translating or speaking Korean for business transactions. In today's competitive global economy, speaking a second language can be a competitive edge. As a teacher in Oregon, I had many Spanish students. It was because of this that I took the 2 years that I had studied Spanish in college and went to Mexico for a month. I lived with a Mexican family and studied every day Spanish classes that were taught by only a Spanish-speaking teacher. I came home and was able to say basic things in Spanish. A couple of years later, I went to Costa Rica and did another Spanish immersion, living with a family and taking classes every day. Today, I'm able to connect with our Latin American families because I speak some Spanish. I can say, me llamo Jennifer Ferrer, soy una directora de la escuela Pichitrri. Su hijo no asistió a la clase de historia. Es importante, va a la escuela por la ruta. My name is Jennifer Ferrer. I'm your child's assistant principal. Your child did not attend history class today. It's important for you to come to the school for a meeting. The message is delivered and you should see the expressions on the Latin American children's faces when they see a Korean woman speaking Spanish. Last week at my school, we had a Noche de Padres. It was a meeting for Spanish-speaking families. It was only in Spanish. We sent out an email and a phone call in Spanish. We invited the families to come in, and our students and some of our staff members that spoke Spanish gave an overview of all the school important facts. How to get into college, how to prepare for college, important items about which classes to choose and why. I was able to be at the door and greet the parents, bienvenidos a la Pichitrri, and speak some casual Spanish to them. The impact that made with the families was powerful. I wish I could do that for our Korean families. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in parent meetings with Korean parents and there's a translator present. Unless they speak English, there's a translator present. I'll tell you this. 25% of the children at Peachtree Ridge High School are Asian. Most of them are Korean. I am partnered with a counselor and we have part of the alphabet. The counselor I'm partnered with is also Korean. This was 2 weeks ago and we were in a meeting with a student that's Korean, her mother, Korean, me, Korean, the counselor, Korean, the social worker, white, and the translator, Korean. So this is the reality of today. We have 2 school officials who are Korean, and yet we still have a translator in the room connecting with the families. I kind of give myself a break because I had white parents, but what I'm saying is your job is so important because I always assumed that if people were raised in Korean homes that they would speak Korean and be fluent. That's not the case. They still need translators. And the reality is that if children do not grow up being fluent and competent in Korean, they lose a competitive edge. I know this because I've hired a lot of people in my 19 years. And if there are two candidates that are equally qualified, and one is fluent in another language, they're going to be chosen. As a former history teacher, I find this time for young people to be magnificent and daunting. Never before has technology regenerated as quickly as it does today. 70% of the jobs they will hold have not yet been discovered. And this is true if you think about it. There were no app developers. Cyber security didn't exist 15 years ago. New generations of technology turn over every 6 months, where they used to take years. But our young people know this. In fact, it's all they've ever known. For our students, the internet has always existed. Since 1997 and beyond, when they were born, they can always remember a smart cell phone. They never knew dumb cell phones. They've always worked on iPads. To them, bigger is not bigger, it's bigger. Televisions have always been HD, and they find it interesting that we all gathered around the TV once to watch a particular show. We could not fast forward through commercials, and we had to wait an entire week to watch the next episode. We didn't have binge watching or Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon Prime. We had to walk barefoot uphill in the snow to change the channel without a remote control or Wi-Fi. Velocious regenerative technology is a millennial norm, and we must prepare these young people for their future careers. In addition to the norming of breakneck technology is the worst economic meltdown since the Great Depression, the greatest economic gap in our history, a shrinking middle class, and the greatest job displacement since the Industrial Revolution. What is the American dream, or any dream of a parent for her child? It is the great desire for them to have a better life than we did. It is for them to not have to suffer the struggle their parents did, to double their bounty. It is for them to be able to do whatever their heart desires. And it is exactly this American dream that is at risk. As the global economy grows and disparity between rich and poor in America widens, the dream becomes more difficult. As more middle-class Americans put their children in private school and public schools fight for appropriate funding, the access to a better life becomes limited to fewer and fewer people. Education has always been the foundation of American democracy and the American dream. The idea that regardless of your zip code, your family status, that you could become president of the United States, an owner of a Fortune 500 company, to do better than your parents, or to surpass your social class. As everyone in this room knows, this is not a reality in other countries as it is in America. What everyone here may not know is that the foundation of the American dream is the American public school. As long as schools are successfully and publicly funded, everyone is provided the opportunity to go as far as their desire and ability will take them. But I want to encourage you in this challenge, because with great risk comes great opportunity. Entrepreneurs turn opportunity into an asset and drive the economic engine that keeps America great. Entrepreneurship was once reserved to a select few, but today everyone must be an entrepreneur. Our schools, our teachers, our parents need to prepare students to be entrepreneurial problem solvers, creators of their own destiny, as they most assuredly will have to create their own jobs. I did a little research on entrepreneurship, which I think is a key component of the American dream. It showed that there are certain qualities that make up an entrepreneur. Desire to achieve, focus on your locus of control, risk-taking propensity, tolerance for ambiguity, creativity, and self-confidence. By attending this conference, you've already displayed a desire to achieve. There was great intention and preparation for you to be here today. I believe that all people want to achieve, but some lose their desire if it is squashed or if they find it hopeless. As teachers, it is our job to instill hope in our students. For many of our students' parents, they may want their children to become lawyers or doctors because they think that is successful. But our economy is changing. Healthcare is changing. Doctors and lawyers are not the top salaries anymore. I suppose some would argue that success is not the highest paid salary, but doing what one loves. I'm fortunate in my life to be able to live my passion, to do exactly what I love and believe in every single day. I cringe when I hear parents discourage children from becoming educators because they believe that they won't be paid enough. Here's what I know. I have many friends that are doctors and lawyers. Most of them hate their jobs. I love my job. Most of them are not a doctor or a lawyer because they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. I'm speaking of my Korean friends. They are that profession because it pleased their parents. Their college debt ranges from $80,000 to $250,000. The reality of this is seen in their monthly budget. Their salary may be more than mine, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's picking up the dinner check. Because they pay up more than I pay in my monthly mortgage for their college debt. To add insult to injury, they hate their job. They're miserable. And if anyone is miserable in their job, they're not as successful as they can be. If they're miserable, their boss sees that, promoted. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I was playing teacher from the age of 3. I was writing curriculum packets at the age of 7. I love what I do. I would do it if I didn't have to work and I didn't need money. I would still want to do what I'm doing now. If I made minimum wage, I still want to do what I'm doing now. Because I'm doing what I love, I'm successful. I've received many promotions. This is why I can go to dinner and pay for my unsuccessful lawyer and doctor friends. I'm not speaking of all lawyers and doctors. I'm just speaking if they did it for the wrong reason. If they did it to please their parents. and not because it was their passion or their love. When you do what you love, you are good at it, and you're compensated accordingly. The next entrepreneurial characteristic is focusing on your locus of control. This is much more difficult than it sounds, at least it was for me. Acknowledging what you can control is key in the entrepreneurial American spirit, because you have more power and influence on yourself than anyone else. For many years, I tried to influence others, but I could never control them. I could only control myself. And I would say, once you learn that you can only control yourself and take responsibility in that, it's incredibly liberating. One of the quotes that I live by is by Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. You can adapt this to be the change you wish to see in your world. Choosing the right college is one area that our students have that's within their locus of control. There's a problem in the Korean community, and I call it Louis Vuitton University Syndrome. So many parents want their children to go to an elite Louis Vuitton university so they can go to church and say, yes, my child goes to Louis Vuitton University. How's your child doing at Louis Vuitton University? But the reality is, very few students can actually afford to go to these very expensive colleges. Absent large scholarships or wealthy parents, this can result in very high debt. Choosing the right university really depends on the individual's career or life goal. Most people do not want to be President of the United States, a Supreme Court Justice. However, Korean parents still want their children to go to Ivy League schools, regardless of their ambition or the cost of the school. If we let our students choose their profession to match their passion, success will come. If students do not know the profession that they want, they should not attend a school they cannot afford. Many personal finance advisors have stated that you should not leave a 4-year degree with more debt than you will make in your first year out of college. I did not go to Louis Vuitton University. My university wasn't even Coach. But it was Western Oregon University, and it was the best state college to teach you how to be a good teacher. It was also the cheapest state college. If you consider that $10,000 of college debt is $115 in monthly payment, this consideration can present a barrier to the American dream. There is a lot you can control about yourself, so much that you will never be done with this work. You can control your thoughts, you can control your facial expressions, your attitude, your actions, where you choose to spend your time and who you choose to spend your time with. And you most certainly can choose the appropriate college or university for you. They say you become a product of the people you spend the most time with. So it is important that we help our students be mindful of the people in their inner circle. Which leads to the next entrepreneurial characteristic, risk-taking propensity. Skydiving, mountain climbing, bridge jumping, I contend that these are easy risks. The real risk is stretching your mind from what you think you can do to what you can do. Real risk occurs between your ears and in your mind. Certainly you have heard the phrase, you can do anything you set your mind to. Well, anything was accomplished one step at a time. I didn't just pop up on the stage and begin speaking to you as if I had no problem. There have been thousands of times that I've spoken to groups, and each time it got a little more difficult. First, it was to a classroom, in a theater, and a stage. First, it was students, parents, now teachers and distinguished guests. This risk-taking propensity I want our students to have. I want them to take risks in everything they do. I want them to take risk-taking, make it a habit, go a little further each time. This concept can be replicated in the classes they take, the organizations they join, and the friends that they have. Please encourage your students to make friends and be involved in organizations that are not Korean-based. To gain a competitive advantage, our students need to be able to interact and be comfortable in diverse groups. I have seen so many Korean students and 2.0 adults who get very shy and intimidated in mixed racial groups. This impacts their careers. We must prepare our students to be leaders in our community, not just in our Korean community. This doesn't take away from their Korean ethnicity or their identity. Keep in mind, I know many 2.0 adults who all their friends are Korean, all their associates are Korean. But yet, at work, can they speak Korean fluently? Can they translate? Can they make a business negotiation? They cannot. I think it should be reversed. I think that our children should be able to have friends and interact confidently with mixed groups of people, to be able to speak to mixed groups of people and have mixed friends, and fluent and competent in the Korean language. This will help our students take risks in the dreams that they have. Dare them to dream, to be the Supreme Court Justice, to be a CEO, a senator, or the next president of the United States. Help them take risks in their mind. Everything begins here, and we can control what we think. The next one is tolerance for ambiguity. My father's generation, he was born in 1941, and that generation, everyone worked for the same company their entire life. Today, we change professions as many as 7 times in our career. It might go from attorney to real estate agent to consultant to negotiator, small business owner, and teacher in one career. Doctor, consultant, professor, inventor, CEO, community health director in one lifetime. Our students' career path most likely will take them to multiple professions. Clear and straight paths are not always the right path. Instilling a strong Korean identity and language will help our students stay connected to their heritage as they navigate their working career. Remember what I said, 70% of the jobs that they will have not yet been invented. Not knowing the answer to everything will allow them to be creative. And creativity and self-confidence is the next characteristic. These characteristics will come with time. Some people believe that creativity is innate. I believe it's like leadership. You have certain raw materials that you may be born with, but creativity takes discipline and practice in order to be useful in society. I don't mean discipline as in being punished, because to discipline means to teach. So leadership or creativity to be effective, training is necessary. Anyone can be a leader or creative. It requires training to form habits to make it useful for others. Teachers, you're our greatest hope. Your demonstrated commitment to community has been evident in your attendance today. You have already demonstrated entrepreneurial characteristics, and I acknowledge you for this. As you work in your communities and with your students, please know you are directly impacting the American dream. You make sacrifices every day to help our students find their destiny, to discover their talents and follow their dreams, so they can do better than we have done. Thank you every day for what you do with our students. Please help them come out of their bubble and safety of the Korean enclave. We can maintain our Korean heritage by knowing our language and increase our competitive advantage in the community. Thank you.